Good morning, friends. Today we are going to do a leg day garage style, which is one of my favorite things to do, especially when it gets this temperature, which it's a little brisk outside, but the sun is out, the leaves are changing, the garage door, busted or not, it is up. And we're also going to talk about the Dexa scan results that I got last week, which I'm very happy about. I'll also go over some of the things that I implemented and think really helped me to get the results that I did. So let's get after it. Also, if you hear me get out of breath, my cardio, endurance, it's all been trash. So I think that I'm actually going to start like a little series on getting back into that, because I used to do CrossFit workouts, HIIT workouts. I used to love doing sprints. So I want to get back into that. Obviously, we'll ease into it. But obviously, I don't want it for the, let me clarify. I don't want it for like, so I can, lose weight or have it help me be in a caloric deficit. I really just want it for the endurance benefits, the heart health benefits, the important stuff. Why are the metal plates so much heavier? You give me a 35-pound metal plate and a 35-pound bumper plate, this girl is gonna be way heavier. Make it make sense. Oh, why does everything feel heavy today? Fucking math. If you guys remember last week's video, if you watched last week's video, I was talking about how I was going to get a Dexa scan while I was in Texas for a wedding. I can't get one here because they don't offer it anywhere. So I did look some up and I found some, but they were through hospitals, because one of the things that a Dexa scan measures is bone density. And I guess for here, that's what they use it for. So I reached out to my doctor and I was like, hey, can you set me up with a Dexa scan? And he said, why? Are you worried about your bone density? I was like, no, but I want to do it for the other measurements. And he was like, well, it doesn't do that. I was like, okay, cool. Guess not. So the last time I had got it done was a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, in Santa Clara, not Arizona, with a company called Body Spec, which what a Dexa scan is it uses X-ray to measure your bone density, your muscle mass, and your fat mass. And you basically lay on this table, this arm with this, machine scans you from head to toe, and then you get the results in I think it took me 15 minutes this time. So another thing that I really liked about the Dexa scan is it also, I love my neighbor. It also measures the mass by limb, so you can see if you are symmetrical. It gives you other areas of your body that you can work on. So if your right arm has more muscle mass than your left arm, you can obviously change your programming to accommodate to try and even them out. Another thing that I really liked was it measures your visceral fat, which that was something that was very big for me when I got my first scan, that I really wanted to lower that, because your visceral fat is the fat that is around and kind of in between your internal organs. Your subcutaneous fat is the fat that's under your skin. Your visceral fat is kind of your bad fat. I know that all fat has protective qualities. However, the stuff that's around your organs, it leaves you for a more increased risk for things like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, stroke. So that's definitely something that you want to be aware of. This can be tested with a waist circumference because obviously most of it's going to be in your midsection. I think for men, anything over 40 inches is considered high risk, and for women it's 35. Dying a little bit. Not gonna lie. Big oof. Okay, we're done with squats. Let's move to hip thrusts. So can I just tell you that I am the queen of irrational fears? So every time I do hip thrust, I get this like crazy anxiety because you have an artery, your femoral artery, it's giant, runs up through your leg, up through your hip, and your stomach. For whatever reason in my mind, every time I do hip thrust, I'm causing trauma to that artery and I'm gonna cause a hemorrhage or blood clot. Like, can that happen? That's terrifying. Somebody tell me that can't happen. It's gotta be deep enough, right, in there that it can't easily be like damaged. I don't know. But also anybody that does hip thrusts and say they don't hurt, they're lying to you. They hurt. I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just a wuss. Right, it's not a thing, that can't be a thing. Maybe I should just look it up. Good news, our friend Dr. Google says you cannot damage your femoral artery by doing proper form hip thrust because your femoral artery is deep. However, bad form, you can cause trauma to your like bones. So let's load this baby up. All right, let's go over my Dexa scan results. These are my results from my first Dexa scan last year, which you can generate directly from the Body Spec website. The thing I really liked about this report is that they give you the information in an easy to read format. First, they show you all of your numbers for the measurements they took. Total body fat percentage, total mass in pounds, fat tissue in pounds, lean tissue in pounds, and your bone mineral density. They also give you a body fat percentile chart that allows you to see where you compare to people within the different age ranges. Something I thought was cool is that they also break it down by limb. This way you can see if you have any asymmetry going on. They also provide fat by region and your visceral fat. Visceral fat is the fat that is located in and around your organs that is considered to be the unhealthy fat, and it can contribute to a range of metabolic diseases. So it's always good to be aware of what yours is. The rest of the report is just showing the information as trends. Because this was my first scan, I don't have anything to compare it to, but on my second report, it does have a graph showing upwards and downward trends. This visual is from the dashboard on the Body Spec website. I actually prefer this one just because I'm a visual person and I think the information is even easier to read here. So my scan last year, I weighed 179 pounds. This last scan, I weighed 163.5 pounds. Without this breakdown, I wouldn't be able to know if the weight I lost was muscle or fat. Sometimes we see the number on the scale going up or down and we beat ourselves up. But if we knew it was going down because we were losing muscle, we wouldn't be as happy. Or on the flip side, if the scale was going up and we knew it was muscle, we wouldn't be as upset. My goal was to lose fat and gain muscle, or at least lose as little muscle as possible. I'm really happy with these results. I lost 17.8 pounds of fat and actually gained 2.4 pounds of muscle. These are kind of creepy, but in a cool way. They provide the different scan images, which you can look at side by side from your previous scan, which are kind of similar to progress pictures, which I think are a much better way to track progress because listen, we see ourselves every day, so it's really hard for us to recognize when our bodies are changing. Another thing I really liked about this report is that it gives you more in-depth information for each of the measurements and also shows you again with visuals your trends and what percentile you're in. Also in each of these boxes, they provide articles with even more information and ways that you can optimize your range. Okay, we'll go over what things I changed in the last year to lose 17.8 pounds of fat and gain 2.4 pounds of muscle. Okay, so the first thing that I did was I focused on my overall health and daily habits. I went and I got some blood work done just to make sure that I didn't have any deficiencies or that there wasn't something major that was wrong that would be a barrier. Anything that wasn't optimal, I tried to improve. I also worked on my overall stress and inflammation. I did this through breathing techniques, different supplements, and also some dietary changes. If your body is already in a highly stressed state, throwing strength training, cardio workouts, or drastic diet changes on top of it, your body is just going to fight that much harder against you because it's always trying to find a state of homeostasis. But I think that one of the biggest things that correlated to improving my stress and inflammation was improving my sleep. Your muscles don't grow at the gym. They grow during recovery. I know that's corny, but your body cannot recover if you don't give it a chance with consistent, adequate sleep. Poor sleep can have some major effects on a lot of things, specifically your hormones. It increases your hunger, decreases motivation, and decreases cognitive function, specifically memory, learning, and decision making. Poor sleep can also increase your risk for high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, depression, and a lot more. During your sleep, your body not only is repairing your muscle tissue, but your brain is going through an entire process to repair and regenerate itself. Also, your insulin sensitivity is improving during your sleep because you're allowing your blood sugar levels to stabilize. So how did I improve my sleep? I started to implement a sleep routine. I tried not to be on electronics before bed because the blue light that they emit suppresses your natural production of melatonin, which disrupts your circadian rhythm. I know that some of these things are not always realistic because some people are working until late hours of the night, and also it's very easy for us to pick up our phone and be on Instagram. But the longer you're on your phone and watching TV, it's triggering your body to say, hey, we need to stay awake. And the longer it's gonna take for you to wind down. I tried not to eat before bed because when you eat, it raises your blood sugar, which can interfere with your natural sleep cycles. And also the process of digesting food can keep you awake. It also stimulates production of stomach acid, which can lead to heartburn and indigestion, which nobody wants. I also tried to go to bed and wake up at the same time. This helps to regulate your body's internal clock, which in turn improves sleep quality. Other things that you can implement or at least be aware of are your caffeine intake. Make sure that your bedroom is cool, which is going to send a signal to your brain that it's time to sleep. And also make sure that your room is dark because then it will limit any sort of disturbances. Making any kind of body composition changes in your body is hard enough. I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any internal roadblocks that would make it even harder because that's when people get frustrated and they either fall off their plan or they make drastic changes to force their body to change. Okay, so the second thing that I did was to make sure that my daily caloric intake was either at maintenance or slightly below because my goals were to lose body fat while trying not to lose muscle. When you're in a deficit, you put your body in an anabolic state, which makes it very hard to let alone maintain your current muscle mass, but even harder to build. You can either use online calculators, which there are a ton of them. These are basically just calculations based on formulas that take into consideration your age, your weight, and your daily activity. Or you can track, which is what I did. To do this, you would track your calories and your weight over a period of time, minimum of 2 weeks, because you naturally will go up or down on a daily basis. But you're just trying to get your average. After, let's say, 2 weeks, if your weight has stayed relatively the same, you're most likely in maintenance. If your weight went up, you're in a surplus, and if it went down, you're in a deficit. Once I found out what my maintenance was, I tried to stay in that sweet spot between maintenance and a deficit. Not too much of a deficit because I did want to try and preserve my muscle mass. You can make body composition changes at staying in maintenance, it just takes a little bit longer. Also, what activities you're doing and what your diet looks like dramatically affect what changes you're making. Now that RDLs are done, we're gonna do some weighted step-ups. Once again, I am embarrassingly out of breath after that set. Cool. Okay. The third thing that I did was focus on protein. Now that I knew what my maintenance looked like, I could figure out how I wanted to parse out my macros, which macros are your protein, fat, and carbs. And knowing that protein and carbs are 4 calories per gram and 9 calories for fat, I could figure out how I wanted to distribute the rest of my macros. Protein is really important because it's not only the building block of our cells, but it also helps to synthesize our hormones, our cells, our tissue, aka maintains and builds muscle, but also it's important for the health of our hair, skin, and nails. My goal was to get 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass, or my ideal weight. I was shooting for between 150 to 160 grams, and at the minimum, 130, because my goal was to not lose muscle, and I wanted to provide my body with as many tools as it needed to assist in the function of building muscle. Once I figured out where my protein was, I could figure out where I wanted my carbs and fat to be. I function better with higher fats because honestly, carbs are not an essential macro, and while it assists in energy, our body can naturally produce energy from our stored glucose. Don't get me wrong, I will fuck up a gluten-free pizza, but I know that when I do, I will feel lethargic, my brain doesn't function, and I just kind of feel inflamed. So I chose to do higher fats over carbs. Also, the thermic value of protein is higher than fat and carbs, meaning that it takes your body more energy to break down and digest protein over fat and carbs. For protein, it's 15 to 30% compared to up to 3% for fat and 5 to 10% for carbs. So girl math, you're basically burning calories to eat protein. Okay, so fourth thing, last and final thing I did, which, I guess it was probably a lot more things that I did, but I think that these are the biggest things that made an impact. So the last thing was I changed my programming. I know that that's probably one of the things that people are like, well, why didn't you start with your program? Why wouldn't that have been number one? Well, I'm not saying that the gym is not important, because it obviously is. But if all of the other things that I mentioned are not optimal, are not in the place that they need to be, whatever you're doing at the gym is not going to get you to your goals. So let's take it back to 1. If your sleep is bad, you're not recovering. Let's take it back to 2. If your macros are off, you're not going to build muscle. So say that you think that you're in a surplus, but you're in a deficit, you're not going to build muscle. Let's take it back to 3. If you are not taking in enough protein, you are not going to be recovering or building any muscle. So that's why, to me, getting all those things figured out and then working on my programming is what helped me get my goals. That's just what worked for me. Obviously, everybody's going to be different. So how did I change my programming? This was hard. This was very hard. I used to lift and do strength training, but then on top of that, I would also do, 2 days. I would do CrossFit. I would do a HIIT class, anything that would get me just sweating profusely, because I thought that that's what I needed to do in order to reach my goals. And when I started having health issues, I was really forced to not only cut back, but really cold turkey stop all of the high intensity workouts that I was doing. And as I cut them out, my health did start to improve, and I learned from that. So I started really just strength training the majority of the time. As I focused more on strength training, I also had to stop ego lifting. I am one of those people where I like to go to the gym and I just like to beat myself into the ground with a workout. I just have to feel like I'm dying, or else was it even a workout? Did I even do anything? I have to literally be sweating from head to toe. And I also had to get that through my brain that's not doing you any favors. So I started focusing on full body workouts, and I was doing these 3 days a week. I was so used to, at the time, going to the gym 6-7 days a week, not really having a rest day. My rest days would be doing a CrossFit WOD in the gym, because it was like 15 minutes. I was like, oh, well, this is a rest day, because I'm not really in the gym for 2 or 3 hours, which I thought that was what I needed to do to reach my goals. So as I reduced my time in the gym, weird things started to happen. I started to get stronger. I started to increase my muscle size, and I felt more rested. My sleep was getting better. All of these things were improving. I think one thing that is helpful for people to understand is your goals shouldn't revolve around the weight that you're lifting in the gym or the scale moving. It really should be all about these other aspects in your life improving. So is your sleep getting better? Is your sex drive going up? Are you having more energy throughout the day? So these are all, I think, wins and improvements that we should also focus on top of the goals that we're trying to do in the gym. So yeah, that is the fourth and final thing that I did that I think really helped to improve my overall health in the last year and to help me get to the goals that I had for myself the year before. So I stopped ego lifting, I focused on my programming, and I stopped doing workouts that were counterproductive to my goals. So I think that all of these things, they're worth a try. I think in general, from the top down, what I mentioned was getting your overall health in check. I think that's good for everybody. And then working on your diet. The old saying that abs are not made in the gym, they're made in the kitchen. I think that overall health is made in the kitchen and not the gym. So without all of these things, you're not going to reach your goals. I'm sorry, and you probably don't want to hear that. But if you have poor health, then why are we stacking other things on top of it, thinking that you're going to make any sort of progress? So, focus on your health, focus on mobility, focus on, just trying to eat better, and then get yourself in the gym and get some movement in. I think that, and this is coming from somebody who I worked out every single day. I couldn't go on vacation without finding a gym, stressing about a gym, and figuring out how I'm going to get my protein in, where a grocery store is. I get it. But I think there is some benefit to taking a step back, and I'm not saying start over, but kind of reevaluate and assess those building blocks that need to be put in place in order for you to make any progress. So I hope that was helpful. And if you guys get a Dexa can, let me know, because I would love to hear your experiences. I will put the company down below in the description of where I went. And also, if you are in the Pittsburgh area, I will put the location that is opening in the city, hopefully soon, but we'll see. I'm going to get this workout done. I only have a couple more things to do, but I will see you guys next week.